You're listening to the Southampton Delivery Podcast, a podcast dedicated to the Southampton Football Club and all of the SFC fans.
If you want to have guarantees, you have to buy a washing machine.
Fonte with a scooping header.
We don't lose a match, either we win or we learn. And today we learned.
Отдача, Остин! Все-таки забил!
It's infield to Mane, 25 yards out. Lovely ball for Bella. Onside, 1-0. Buffon shot! Oh my word!
Unbelievable. We ran around the pitch like Bambi on ice. It was very, very embarrassing to watch.
And now, your host, Matt Markstone.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Southampton Delivery Podcast, a podcast and newsletter dedicated to the Southampton Football Club and all of the SFC fans, and available right here on southamptondelivery.com. My name is Matt Markstone. I am the host of the show, and no matter where you are, no matter how you may be listening, whether this is your first time or you've been here before, thanks for making the show part of your day. I hope you enjoy it. And this week, we're going to dive right in. We're going to dive directly into the clash with Spurs. And we're going to do that with Jake Hughes, who is the editor of St. Mary's Musings. You can find Jake on Twitter at JJHughes_. You can get in touch with St. Mary's Musings and everything they have to offer at St. Mary's Musings on Twitter. The link to the website is also in the show notes. And on this week's episode, there is no weekend match to talk about, so we'll reflect a little bit on the FA Cup. We'll talk about the JWP injury. We will cover, everything from the penalty that was given to our penalty that wasn't. And also we will, maybe not make excuses for the team. We definitely let Spurs win that game. We allowed them the opportunity, and we'll talk about all of that and also why we should probably be proud of the team despite the loss. So anyway, Saints are on their break. We are here. Jake, as always, is fantastic. I hope that you enjoyed the conversation. And I just want to say thanks for taking the time to be here, for listening. It really does mean a lot. I will also say that Jake and I did not answer any listener questions this week, but if you want to get in touch, be sure to do that. You can send them in on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, via email, however best works for you. You can do that. You can also sign up for the newsletter at southamptondelivery.com. That way you stay up to date with everything that's going on with the show and with the team, get some interesting articles and things in addition to just the normal kind of podcast stuff. So with all that said, let's get to the episode. We won't mess around, so let's just dive right in. I'd like to welcome back to the Southampton Delivery Podcast, Jake Hughes. You can find him on Twitter at JJHughes_, and you can also find him at St. Mary's Musings because he's the editor of St. Mary's Musings. Jake, welcome back to the show, and thanks for joining me on this winter break. And it actually is winter where you are. It's still sunny where I am, but that's the difference.
Yes, we are amidst a storm here in the UK at the moment. Lots of wind, lots of rain, but I'm sure your American listeners will think that's just a regular day in the UK anyway. But yeah, thanks for having me.
No, my pleasure, my pleasure. And then, enough huffing and puffing that it won't blow the house down, but it did postpone a match, which just means we have more time for this. So I think that's good. But anyway, it hasn't been, I would say, the most exciting week. The team, there hasn't been a lot of news going on because, they're supposed to be on break and coming back from stuff. But we'll talk about the Spurs match a little bit, talk about, our last minute loan signing of an under 23 player, which is, the most exciting thing we've ever done at Southampton Football Club. But anyway, we'll do all that. And, we'll just I guess that'll be it. So I think we'll be all right. But, just in case people don't know, a little bit about St. Mary's Musings. It's the SB Nation website for Southampton Football Club. But what can people find if they visit?
So I swear every time we speak, Matt, I kind of downplay the website even worse each time because I kind of taper off how much work I am doing on it. Basically, it's a website for, at the moment, very irregular opinion articles. You'll have the regular match day previews and ways to watch games, which people find quite useful. It's also great for SEO, which is the main reason why I do it.
I'll just interrupt very briefly. Every time I Google search, because I don't use Bing, and that's not a diss for you. That's just a real thing. Every time I Google how to watch a match for anything, it always the first thing that returns is an SB Nation link always, and I was like, it works. Good. So it's you're doing the right thing.
That's good. It makes it all worthwhile, because it is. I can't smoke. It is tedious. I was going to say, flipping tedious.
Yeah. Well, people fill in the blanks. That little kid in the back seat going, I know what he was going to say. But that's all right. But and then also if people follow along at St. Mary's Musings on Twitter, they can get Alan Gunn, who does the match day updates. A quite fun look at what's actually happening on the pitch if you are unable to watch and just want to stay up with it. So people can do that. But I wouldn't downplay it too much, man. Like it's better to have really good stuff go up when it goes up than not good stuff go up all the time.
Yeah, that's how I've tried to at least justify it in my own head. I'd rather write stuff I enjoy writing and actually feel needs to be written, rather than regurgitate news cycles. And obviously it's a website, so there's going to be a small degree of that. But even so, that's been totally minimalized recently. Yeah. So yeah, basically, if a story takes me in particular, or Saints are playing well, Saints playing badly, and I feel inclined to write something, I will. And then everything else is the general sort of thing you'd expect on a football website. But yes, you mentioned Alan. He is the St. Mary's Musings Twitter aficionado. So thank you to Alan. I'm sure he'll listen to this as well. He's great. So yeah, if you are ever entertained by St. Mary's Musings during a match day, it's not me, it's Alan. Yeah. So give him some love.
Yeah, Alan definitely enjoys his duties on match day, and I enjoy following along. So I hope everybody else does as well. But yeah, and I also say, better to put out really good stuff and only when it's important. And I say that sitting here 161 weeks in and having not missed one. So maybe I'm guilty of doing the opposite, but it's all right. So I mean, no match to talk about from the weekend, but we do have the midweek FA Cup match. But there was a signing late on, I guess, it was announced after the transfer window was closed. We got Jacob Maddox from Chelsea's under 23s. He comes in to play with our under 23s. We're not doing well. It's on loan, option to buy. It didn't strike me as anything because, one, it's an under 23 player. Two, I have zero idea who he is. But I think when we both looked at the write up on the website, it was like the most important thing the thing that kind of stood out was like there's definitely a pathway there for players that are capable and want to put the work in. Which I would say, like, one, if you have a player on loan from Chelsea on your squad, like, who doesn't, first of all, and then second of all, like, he's coming here because I think he sees there is a pathway, and that's once again what's attracting talent to the club. And I think that's a good thing for the team, because I think that's what that's the way we're going to be able to kind of attract decent players in is getting them in young, which I think has been the goal, at least in the last, I would say, year and a half.
Yeah, I think it's almost a sign. I think the pathway had been blocked or removed totally with a few of our managerial appointments before Ralph. So I feel like it's a positive quote. I don't know if you read it, but Jacob Maddox said there's definitely a pathway there for players that are capable and want to put the work in. And I think that's a really positive sign. So hopefully that's a sort of sentiment filled a lot with a lot of young players in England at the moment. Just look at the England youth teams in general in the world scene. That we've got quite a lot of talent at the moment. So if Southampton's seen as a progressive club like they were, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, who weren't afraid to play young players, and that can only be a good thing. Plus, Chelsea traditionally have good youth teams, so maybe Jacob Maddox is a decent player. But as we said off air earlier, anyone who says any Southampton fan, at least, who says they know how good Jacob Maddox truly is most likely lying, and neither of us are going to do that right now.
No, I mean, you don't have to lie to kick it. Like, you could just, like, he's going to be good, maybe, or maybe not, and maybe we'll see him play if you watch the under-23s. I don't know. It depends on, honestly, like, there are other things I want to do in my life than watch the under-23s play right now. But, every once in a while. And I hope everybody takes that, like, positively. It's not a knock on them. It's just like, you should do other things.
Yes. Yeah, I fully back you on that.
Yeah. I mean, so we did actually, we played a match, we lost. But once again, this is maybe the second time in just a couple of days at that point where I watched a match, we lost, we played very well. I wouldn't say against Liverpool we were the better team, because I think the second half showed just how good they are, and maybe a decision here or there changes that, but that's done, and nobody expects us to win that match. Spurs, for some reason, I feel over the past couple of seasons have been one of those teams where, like, I don't feel scared of them. Like, I don't go into that match dreading the result. I think, like, we go there and we tend to play well against them recently, at least, and I thought we could have gone through just on our own, and it was a fantastic game. We dominated large portions of the game. I was really, really happy with that. But of course, a couple of things don't go our way, and we'll kind of walk through it. But it was very clear, I guess, that Hasenhüttl was really going for it with the lineup. There wasn't a lot of people left out. I think Geneva was out, but that was due to illness. And so we have Buffal, Redmond, Ings, and Long kind of starting up front, Romeu and Højbjerg in the middle, and then of course Ward-Prowse filling in at right back, with the normal kind of the rest of the back four kind of the same, including and except for Angus Gunn, who's going to fill in a goalkeeper for McCarthy. But I mean, any problems for you with that lineup, or were you kind of happy with the way that was set out?
Yeah, I was really happy. I'm with you with Spurs at the moment. In past seasons, I feel like we've had the odd fairly unlucky game against them. Obviously, we beat them at home last season, and we've done well against them this season as well. It's just nice to see a manager. I don't want to jump ahead and say that Saints are safe. It could be very easy for Ralph to put out a weaker team in the interest of saving players for Premier League games, even with this break. But yeah, it was nice to see us actually give the cup competition a proper go of it, and obviously we are kind of. I don't like Ward-Prowse at right back, but that's just the way it is at the moment of the makeup of our squad. Obviously, we brought in Carl Walker-Peters on loan. I'm not actually sure if he would have been able to play against Spurs in the cup.
No, he's ineligible for two reasons, yeah. I think. One because it's his parent club, and two because he wasn't signed before the original fixture was played.
Okay, that's good to know. So there's that, and plus obviously the game before Ralph hadn't played him because he wanted Walker-Peters to get used to his system. So yeah, I was really happy with it, and just seeing Buffal actually get a start, so he can sort of show what he can do, is also positive, because I know he's made a little bit of noise about not being 100% content with just being a substitute. So it was nice to see Ralph sort of repay some faith in him with a start as well.
Yeah, and like you said, the James Ward-Prowse right back is not my favorite thing, but if you look down the squad, it's who else is going to go there at this point. And I think the fact that you have the captain, and then also somebody who has really shown a lot this season. I think Højbjerg, some of the performances haven't been great, but he is the captain of the team. I don't know if he's volunteered to go play left back at points, but he has done it. And he's done that to the best of his ability. Ward-Prowse, I don't know if he's volunteered for it or gone to the manager and said, look, I can do this job or whatever. But the fact that he's going to go to right back and play well, I mean, that chance he played in for Ings was glorious, and Lloris should have done better, but we'll get to that. And then I don't know, I have a lot of respect for guys who are going to do that. I will say again, one of my favorite players of all time is James Milner, like the guy who does all of those things. So like that might be a little bit of me just, I got the coach's award a lot as a kid. So maybe that's what it is, you just do what the manager tells you, but it is what it is. And I imagine going forward, imagine if we look forward to Burnley, it'll be, Kyle Walker-Peters, Stevens, Bednarak, Bertrand, Romeu, and Højbjerg in the middle, and then Redmond, Ings, Long, and one other, whether it's Buffal, whether it's Shanepo, or whether maybe Long makes way for Obafemi. It'll be something like that probably going forward, which I think will be good. I think that's as strong as we can get right now. And you just hope that, when we get to James Ward-Prowse's injury, that he comes back sooner.
Yeah, and obviously Stuart Armstrong's returned as well.
Yeah.
I think it was right not to, because he has played right back for us before. I think it was right to not just chuck him in straight away, because I think he's shown how important he can be for Southampton. I think he's definitely at least one of the reasons why we've seen a bit of an upturn in form of late. He just seems to get things ticking along in midfield or on the right. So hopefully with this break as well, he can be fully fit for Burnley as well. Yeah.
I'm hoping that once we come back from this, that I imagine everybody but Ward-Prowse should be ready. Maybe I even saw Jan Valery did play for the under-23, so maybe he's even getting back to the point where he can come back into the team now that we have Kyle Walker-Peters. So I don't know how that works, but at least we have one extra left back or right back or just full back in general. So
I would ask how Jacob Maddox played, but I don't know if you can answer that.
Cannot answer that. Maybe. I mean, given the fact that there's no other Premier League football on for me to watch later, maybe I'll go back and watch that replay, but probably not.
Yes, do it. Shoot me a message if you do. I'll be intrigued to know, because I won't be doing that.
Don't put your phone down then. Expect that message.
Okay.
Anyway, but I guess we could just walk through some of the major points of the game. And one of the things that we've relied on so heavily this season has been Danny Ings scoring goals. And over the last 4 matches in all competitions up until this match, he hadn't scored, which matches his longest drought of the season, which is not, 4 goals without a game is not the end of the world. But I kind of have been on this kind of, I've been hanging on it, like wanting him to score, needing him to score, because I'm worried that if he doesn't score, we're not going to win. And then, he has a couple of chances in the game that don't quite come off. I mean, Redmond does well to create a chance for him, and he just kind of rolls it. It's almost the same chance that he did when he last time we played Spurs in I think at home maybe, where he kind of just took Alderweireld completely out of the game, which I just really thoroughly enjoyed. And then, puts it past Lloris, but he doesn't quite do that this time. He cuts back, but kind of rolls it at him. But have you been worried about Ings not scoring, or do you think it's just part of what happens? I mean, if you look at all the people who score all the FPL points and all the goals, it's Vardy, it's Tammy Abraham, it's Ings. They're all kind of going through this run right now where they're not scoring a lot. So, I mean, is it something we need to worry about, or is it not that big of a deal?
I don't know. Any concerns I do have is similar to what you just said, in terms of if Ings doesn't score, where are the goals going to come from? I think the team's been actually quite good recently, while Ings has been through a sort of dry patch. And I say dry patch quite lightly, because 4 games without a goal, we'd snap someone's arm off for that, like last season or the season before, because there weren't a whole lot of goals coming from anyone.
Yeah.
I'm still at a stage where I just really appreciate seeing Ings on the pitch because of his injury record and everything else. I wouldn't say I was concerned about his ability or his goals drying up. I know there has been some talk online about defenders are starting to sort of double up on Ings a bit more, and he might find it a bit more difficult to score going forward. But on this evidence and against the Jose Mourinho team, even if they're not quite prepared the way Mourinho would like, I think it was a good showing, even with those early misses. I just think the fact that he's he's finding these dangerous areas constantly. He's always on the move. I mean, I can't remember the last time we've had a striker as clever as him in those areas, and willing to press like he does. I think it's just encouraging. I think even with the 4-game dry spell, I just knew that he would come good. I didn't necessarily expect it this game, but I knew it wasn't anything to be really concerned about.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% on that. And, you know, he gets himself into the positions and makes the runs and does the extra work that I think sometimes goes unnoticed. But I think a lot of fans also have been able to and been willing to praise him for. And so we can put up with that 4-game dry spell without any real complaints. You know,
beggars can't be choosers.
Right.
I think that's one thing to always remember. And we are very blessed to have Danny Ings in the form he has been this season. I'd absolutely love it if that were to continue next season in a Saints shirt.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, if Danny Ings is fit and playing for Southampton, I'm happy.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to just say, like, you know, Spurs were not the better team, even though they went 1-0 up. I think Saints played so well in that match, and this is like kind of it's just happening again. We're coming out, even in that first half against Liverpool last week. We played so well. The pressing was there. We disrupted everything they tried to do, and it's a pleasure to watch. I know some people, some of my friends have not enjoyed watching Southampton because they're like, the ball's not on the ground. I was like, the ball's not going where you want it, and we're winning. You know, like, we're winning the ball back. We're creating chances. That's exactly what I want. I want to see tackles. I want to see cynical fouls. Like, I want to see all of it from the guys, because that's how we're going to play, and I'm here for it. You know, and so to see us kind of do that to Spurs again, and then to see them kind of, you know, Stevens, for everything that he hasn't done this season, has been great since coming back into the team. Kind of recovers, makes that tackle, and then is just unlucky to have that shot deflect off of him, because that ball was going well wide. Like, I don't even think Gunn was going to dive. I think that's how wide it was going to go, you know?
Yeah, it was actually a very, very good tackle from Stevens as well to begin with. It's just one of them. He couldn't do much about it. You know, sometimes you need luck to win games, and well, we'll come on to more luck from Spurs, but that's what they had on the night. It's just one of them things. But I do want to just mention that it was a brilliant tackle to begin with, though.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I was looking at it, and Spurs playing on the counter, us playing against the counter, we don't have the pace with our center backs, and it just takes, you know, one guy ball watching one time, and that's it, you know, and you worry about guys like Son and Mora and everything else, like, running in on us, and what's going to happen if that happens. And, you know, I would say that just the recovery from Stevens and the positioning he got into and to make that tackle were fantastic. And then if he just lays on the ground and doesn't move, which is what our defenders seem to do for the last few years, you know.
At the wrong times.
Yes,
the one time where you needed him to do that, it was then.
Yeah, so you can't fault him for the effort, but it unfortunate. But you know, we managed to get our way back into it. But before that, we mentioned a little bit, but that I think it was my favorite part of that match, was just that ball from Ward-Prowse down the right to Ings, just curling in behind the defense, and Lloris just being caught, not knowing what to do. You know, he just kind of glued to a spot, allows Ings to get there, and then Ings just hits the bar. And it's like, man, like, it's one of those things where early in the season that hits the bottom of the bar and goes in, you know, or during that run. But right then it just not quite there. And I don't know, but the ball from Ward-Prowse, I think it was just beautiful. Yeah,
and for all the talk that we had about not liking Ward-Prowse out wide or at right back, we're going to go against our word here, but that was one of the best passes. Like, it was just absolutely inch perfect. As you said, totally caught the Spurs defence out. Lloris didn't know whether to come out for it or not. Ings hitting the bar. You could easily take that as a sign of it's not going to be his night in terms of scoring a goal. But yeah, it just goes to show, like, what I love about this Saints team at the moment with Ralph, and is what I've hoped for since he was appointed, just because of his reputation in Germany, was quick transition play. Not necessarily counter-attacking play, but just being quick on the break, or quick to, formulate an attack. When you have someone like Ward-Prowse putting in balls like that, it just makes everything much easier for someone like Danny Ings if he's in form. Unfortunately, didn't put it away on this time, but it was definitely a big warning shot for Spurs.
Yeah. And with that, I mean, you just hope that he doesn't put his head down, and he doesn't. He continues to kind of go after it, and we do manage to get an equalizer. Redmond, I mean, first of all, I think that in the build up to the long goal, Buffal does well to kind of like find space, make a turn, take a touch, find Redmond, who turns the wrong way. Looks like every one of us on a Sunday afternoon, and then just kind of wheels the shot away, and yeah, the deflection is there for Long, who, you know, scores. He scored before Danny Ings, which is like, you know, if we had a 4-game goal drought for Shane Long, we'd be like, hey man, this is like world record setting pace here for you. But like, he manages to put that one home, and I mean, it felt justified again. I felt like the result was going the way the game should have been at that point. We should have been at least even, if not up. And that was, I mean, it felt good for him. I was glad for him. Glad that Redmond managed to get that shot away, even though I felt like he turned the wrong way and kind of made a bit of a mess of it.
Yeah. I'm shocked a chance came from, if you just look at that sort of passage of play where Redmond made the turn and shot on the turn. I'm shocked that a goal scoring opportunity came from it, let alone a goal. I think the Reece should have done much better. But I think even before Redmond got the ball, I absolutely loved Buffal's sort of turn and run, which is one of the things we obviously see when he comes on against leggy defenders towards the end of a game. But he's so much fun to watch when he picks up the ball. Obviously, he's got some failings in other parts of his game, perhaps defensively, but he was the driving force behind that. And Redmond, try as you like, he was very close to screwing that opportunity up. But I'm glad Shane Long was there to pick up the pieces, which usually you'd say Shane Long's the one screwing a chance up, not the other way around. But I love having Long in the team as well. I think he's one of the reasons why we are so quick on the break as well. I don't know if I've ever said this on this podcast before, but I genuinely believe this with 100% conviction. If Shane Long had, let's say, even Danny Ings this season's level of finishing, I think he'd be one of the world's best strikers. He's so quick. I think he's very intelligent in terms of his runs as well. If he had any ounce of composure in front of goal, I think he'd be at least at one of the top clubs. But,
That's, if he had any ounce of that, he would be somewhere other than Southampton, you know, and not.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. Without a doubt.
You know, it's very rare that you find somebody with all of those characteristics, and his sprinting, which your speed's supposed to go away, your physical.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, that's supposed to. He should have been exposed by now, but he still is managing to get in the team, and I think it makes the team better, honestly. And it's not because I don't want our strikers to score. It's just because I think he makes the team better. He does the things that Danny Ings needs him to do to create space and do those things. Otherwise, you know, I don't know. He just does it all, and I'm a big fan of, like I said, guys who work hard and get the coaches award. So we're back to that. Go back to Long. If you give him a run of games and he's got a clear role to play, like he did under Koeman, like he does now under Ralph, he's very effective. I think he's actually somewhat an underrated passer of the ball as well. Just off the top of my mind, the assist for Charlie Austin last season against Arsenal, he can put in a decent cross as well. But he's got so much energy and so much running. He's quick, as you said earlier as well. I just can't believe he hasn't lost a second of his speed. What is he, 31, 32? But it's still there. He still terrorizes defenders like he did under Koeman in his late 20s at, you know, your so-called physical prime. I think if he's got given a run of games and a clear, he's essentially like a player of his own, isn't he? Up there, if you give him some kind of objective each game to terrorize particular defenders, just always. Whenever I think of Shane Long for Southampton, I just always think about against Arsenal when he's just running at Per Mertesacker or someone just making lives hell at the back. If he's given,
the freedom to do what he does best. I think he's very effective, even if he doesn't get the goals that he perhaps should. I just think for the team, he's very important.
Yeah. Well, and I think maybe that's something that we've found recently is he has a clear role. And I think under the last few managers, that role hasn't been defined. It's been, you're putting him out there to play out wide or to, make something happen where the attacking kind of objective is always to score a goal. But I think this way with Hasenhüttl, it's been worked on more and planned out more. And he goes out there with a clear idea. And I think the whole team has a very clear idea of what the team is supposed to do, what each person is supposed to do. And because of that, I think the whole team gets better. I don't think we have a squad that is good enough to go out there and just play beautiful football. Like, it's not Arsene Wenger freeform jazz, just go out there and make beautiful things. That's not what we're doing. We're literally starting a mosh pit in the orchestra, like, as people try to play nice things, and we're disrupting it. And I think that's something that I can totally, like I said, get behind, and players that have an idea of what they're supposed to do, obviously will do better. I think it goes with anything. If you don't have an objective, you don't go anywhere. You don't do anything. And so by doing that, and by Ralph clearly articulating that, which I think was a problem with Pellegrino, where you couldn't get that point across, this is now you see the way the players respond. Yeah,
I think Long, as well as Ward-Prowse, I guess, in recent weeks, and when Ralph initially took over, I guess you could say Long's been floundering for 2-3 seasons. Ward-Prowse, I was never the biggest fan of his, and then he stepped up and became such an important player for us when Ralph first took over, and he stepped up again since late 2019 and through to now. Mm-hmm. I think they are sort of living, breathing proof of a manager who clearly takes a liking to them and knows how to get the best out of them. Obviously, it's up to the player to deliver on instructions, and they're just looking good at the moment. And you can't ask for much more. No, not at all, not at all. The unfortunate part of this match, other than us eventually losing it, was James Ward-Prowse getting injured by Ryan Sessegnon, and I'll be honest, like I was watching, it was getting towards the period of time where I actually had to teach something. So I was kind of like half watching it, and I just saw it, and it didn't look like enough for him to go down like that. But he doesn't normally, like, that's not a James Ward-Prowse go down and really hold his and flail around. And you can just see Sessegnon was shaken up by it because he kind of could, I guess he saw what he did. Ward-Prowse is down, and Danny Ings is over there trying to calm him down, and that's like when it's really bad, as the players are like basically just trying to get him to breathe, and they brought the oxygen out and everything else. And I just thought, like, that's they at one point flashed to Ralph watching it, and you could just see he's devastated. Like, that guy must love James Ward-Prowse, like, and just to see, you're not sure what's happening, you're not sure how bad it is, and the commentators are all saying it's ligament damage, and that would mean end of season for sure. Maybe be back beginning of next season if he's lucky. And it's just like, I was pissed, man. I was worried, and I didn't know what to do. And then come to find out, it's this, I think they said it's a deep cut, like to the point where it exposed the bone. Which is not great, but I guess it's better news than having your ligaments completely destroyed. Yeah, definitely. I think whenever you see players sort of look visibly distressed from a challenge or something like that, it usually means either a knee or, a leg's been broken. Yeah. So I totally understand why commentators sort of jumped to that conclusion. So it was a huge relief to learn that it wasn't ligament damage. But that goes to show how important Ward-Prowse has been for the last few weeks at the very least. He can divide opinion, but I think by and large most people at least respect the amount of work Ward-Prowse puts in. He's definitely one of the few never say die characters Saints have. Yeah. And he just has a lot of useful things about him. So I think there's a chance he could still miss games with a cut. I don't know if you've seen the photos of it. It's pretty grim viewing. But hopefully he can be back for Burnley. It's probably unlikely. I know as of now, Ralph's just said it's the injury's not as bad as feared, but he's not quite committed to a timeline yet. So yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. But yeah, it's definitely a relief to see he's not not done his cruciate ligaments or anything like that.
Yeah. Well, I guess the worry is that you reopen it, right, and then it just stitches or whatever they have in their tear, and it's not great. So we'll just have to see how long it takes for him to get back, and hopefully he'll be able to at least keep his fitness and things up while he's healing.
Yeah.
We'll see. No, and I don't want to look at it because it's probably something from it looks like something from an early UFC bout, which ironically, I'll get to later. I have a burn later. We'll get to it. I've overhyped it already though. So anyway, so after that, that requires a shift a little bit. Stevens has to go out. Basically, everybody shifts to the right along the defensive line except for Bertrand. Vestergaard slots in at left center back. Bednarak slides over to right center back, and Stevens slides over to right back. Where that's not an ideal situation, but it is what it is. And he, once again, one of those guys who will go and do it, and obviously doesn't have the pace that even Ward-Prowse has, but can play balls through, can put crosses in, can play the long ball. So decent enough. The problem is that Vestergaard then comes in, and you spoke of Long running at Per Mertesacker, and I would just call Yannick Vestergaard just the Danish Mertesacker or vice versa. And it's like, you do a couple of things very well, but anybody with any kind of pace is not there. And Per Mertesacker, very good center back for a long time. Yannick Vestergaard yet to prove that to a lot of people. So
yeah,
we'll see. I don't want to lump them in the same category, just some specific lack of pace. If you play FIFA at all and you have Vestergaard on your team, do not start him because it's 36 pace. It's not good. And but anyway, Buffal should put us ahead, right? With the chance that falls to him. In the end, I don't know if he's trying to cross it to Højbjerg or if he's trying to shoot, but I mean, he just has to hit that. He has to hit the target. I mean, he's done everything else. And we spoke of the turn and the take and the turn in the pass to Redmond for the first goal. This is one of those things where he's got to do better.
Yeah. As much as I like Buffal, I think that just was an example of his. He's unpredictable, but not necessarily in a good way. He's quite inconsistent. So, as you said, he did all the hard work. It was definitely a shot in my mind. And he should have put it away. And it's just another wasted opportunity. At that point, it's 1-1 still. So you'd like to think if that went in, it's a different game. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. Later on we did go 2-1 up, and that still wasn't enough. But we'll get to that later. He should have scored. Simple as that. And I think when you start Buffal, that's when you see why he may not necessarily as impactful as he is coming off the bench. There's a lot of evidence there why Ralph may not favour him as a starting option. Mm-hmm. And I think this was just one instance of that.
I mean, Ings misses chances too, right? And his main job is to score, But Buffal, I think when you're coming into a situation where you are not the guy and you're fighting for a spot, you have to take those. And maybe it's harder to take him at that point because you snatch out a little bit. You want to prove your worth. And, he didn't quite do it there. But I think overall, I mean, we actually have options now. Whether it's him or Janepo or Armstrong, those guys are competing for that spot, and all three of them have contributed, which I think has been fantastic for our season. So, I wish we would have scored there, but at the same time, it is what it is. But
you raise a very good point because Buffal took his chance against Spurs as a substitute last time round, which is probably, and that's how some of the talk about. Ralph was asked questions why Buffal wouldn't start and things like that. And that just goes to show you need to take your opportunities. He got given his opportunity to play from the very get-go. And a big chance like that, you fluff your lines. Maybe he's back to the drawing board until he can prove himself again. We don't have any more cup games there. So will he get the same starting opportunities unless there's injuries or things like that? Maybe not. We'll have to see. But yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. And then I guess one of the other things I wanted to point out was the goal we scored to go up 2-1 came from, a beautiful run from Nathan Redmond, who for large parts of the season, I think I know I wrote this in the newsletter, hasn't been great, has struggled a little bit has gone missing in games, has been, just not as consistent as he was last season. And, he made such a huge improvement last season that you were hoping he was going to do the same this season, but to expect him to do that would have also been, I think just maybe a little delusional. Like you don't, it's not a linear progression all the time. And he's coming in and not scoring as many goals, but that run I think showed all of the best parts of Nathan Redmond's game. The ability to take the ball, the ability he is elusive. He is quick. He's not afraid to take players on when he's feeling confident. And then there was one kind of second where he kind of gets into space and you think he's going to pass, but there wasn't really a pass on. And because of that, he just burst forward again. And I think that was great. And I think the only thing, if I can criticize him a little bit on it, was the pass was slightly behind Ings, gave him a little bit more to do, but Danny Ings then went and did what we were hoping he was going to do and put the ball past Lloris and put us up 2-1. And I just like that goal. We had that full team goal where we had, 30 or whatever passes linking together to finally find a goal a couple of weeks ago. But I look at this goal and I say, like, that's the individual kind of goal. Even though it's an assist, that's the individual kind of effort that I love to see from our players. And it reminds me of the Buffon goal a little bit, only no West Brom players were crashing into each other. But, it was one of those things where I was super impressed with Nathan Redmond. I'm super impressed that even when he's not playing as well as he normally you would want him to, he still has the ability and the confidence to go try that and do that. And it finally comes off.
Yeah, I mean, as far as individual runs go for a counter-attack, you can't ask for much more. I think Redmond had at least two players to take on and beat, which he did. And he ran from near the Saints penalty area. So ridiculous level of skill. This is on 70 plus minutes as well. So he's clearly got plenty of energy left in the tank to sort of do something like that. And one often criticised part of Redmond's game is he's a fairly selfish player. So, there could be a pass on and he'd rather go for goal himself. But sometimes I do appreciate that because our team can be quite shot shy at times. However, on this occasion, he always seemed to be in the mode of, I'm going to set Ings up here. And the pass wasn't perfect, but the fact that he didn't, it would be so easy to get carried away on a run like that, only to try and go for goal and go for glory yourself. The fact that he laid on the goal just as an overall assist, brilliant. It's almost the running equivalent of what Ward-Prowse played in for Ings, down that same flank, ran the length of the pitch essentially, and Ings still had a fair amount to do. I don't think because of the pass, I don't think it was the easiest chance in the world, and given any worries people would have about his sort of goal scoring form at the moment, the fact that he tucked that away was very satisfying. Just as a goal, I can't remember, I think it was Buffon the last time I've seen sort of individual brilliance lead to a goal like that. So yeah, very satisfying.
Yeah. Super stoked with it, and I'm very impressed with the way. I was just very impressed with Nathan Redmond kind of all game, and he stood out to me. And I think it's one of those things where we should be happy with how he's playing right now, and hope that continues over the break, and we can come out and beat Burnley, which would be nice. It's also nice that we don't have to go to Burnley in, I think, February, when it's absolutely freezing the last couple of seasons. I know, talking to Freddie from the Ugly Inside, it's been, I think it's 27 degrees Fahrenheit there last time you guys were there, something like that. It was just that doesn't happen here very often. Our kids are like, all my kids are coming to school in blankets and stuff, and it's like 40 degrees. I'm like, come on, like, it's not that bad. I don't know what it is.
I was going to ask.
Well, in the magic of podcast land, this will take just a second. That is 4.4 degrees, which is not warm. But like kids are like, this is miserable. I'm like, that's not miserable. Like, that's okay. I don't know. Is that cold? Would you say that's cold?
It's not warm, but then I've heard people. So I've worked with a lot of people who aren't from the UK, but are now working in the country, and they say it's a different kind of cold in the UK, which I guess might be wind related. I never actually asked them to elaborate on why that is, but these are people from Scandinavia, Faroe Islands. So if they think it's cold, it's pretty cold. But yeah, 4 degrees, I'd still say it's cold.
Okay.
I wouldn't use a blanket in any kind of cold. I don't think so.
It's a thing. I don't know. The kids all the time do it. It's like, dude, and it's like they're like, well, I can put it away after when it gets warm. I was like, that's what his sweatshirt's for. Like, you put it, take it off,
and you actually wear it.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, I don't know, man. Like, it's weird. Here it's super dry. Like, it's very dry. Like, your hands are cracking and stuff. There's like no moisture in the air, which is, I don't hate it. It does makes your skin hurt if you try to like do something outside, but like other than that, it's totally fine. Anyway, whatever. I don't know why we're talking about that, but it's there.
The slow news week. That's why.
It is. It goes back to what we were talking about at the beginning.
Yes.
Anyway, yeah. Obviously, being up at that point, I think we had dominated the game for the most part. I think what Jose Mourinho said at the end of the game, which is that Saints were their better team and they lost, and whether he's just trying to stoke the PR machine, whatever he's doing. If he's already arguing with Daniel Levy, I don't know, but like, he was right. Whether he knows it or not, he was right. I think he's dead on. But the chance that Mora takes to level the game, I think that Saints have played well up until that point. Obviously, the Vestergaard-Bednarik partnership, not as good as the Stevens-Bednarik partnership. Mora drops deep, finds some space, lays it off to Dele Ali, who I don't like, and then finds himself in a ton of space. And Vestergaard kind of makes a weak stab at it, and Mora puts it home. And it's just one of those things where you could see us starting to tire a little bit. Ralph spoke about it afterwards, where we're not quite fit enough to play that game all 90 minutes. And against a team like Spurs, against a team like Liverpool, they will find a way to push through that at times. Teams that are lower down the table that don't have the individual quality and don't have the players who can be patient and then take those chances, maybe we get away with it against them, but it came back to bite us here a little bit. And I honestly, like, I'm okay with it. Like, it's not the end of the world, because I'd rather see us do what we're doing and lose than kind of run around or play this kind of passive sort of football that we played the past couple of seasons and not really have an identity, and maybe, get a draw and go to penalties or whatever it is. Like, I'd rather us play our game and let the results fall kind of as they may.
Yeah, totally. I mean, just seeing Saints play with a discernible system you can actually see in action is so refreshing. Yeah, you're right. Spurs have a lot more game management experience than we do. And you have to think as well, the higher the quality player, the more fitter they are. It's the two go hand in hand. I guess we are now playing. I don't know if Ralph has truly got his system down to a T with Saints. Obviously, we'd have to speak to him for that. And it's still relatively early days with Southampton playing properly in this manner. We've had a lot of games. Unfortunately, this game fell before the break, but who knows? Maybe, as far as I'm aware, Saints aren't going away anywhere for training. We've actually got the shortest break of any team. I think 10 days. So yeah, maybe it's it will be time off, but also some minutes. Trying to work on fitness when they do return back to training. But yeah, I was the same as you. I wasn't too disheartened. I must admit, I felt immediately as soon as I saw that the second goal went in that we definitely weren't going to get the result. I just had a feeling it was a sign of a collapse coming. But you know what? Just the fact that we're competitive with a team like Spurs is just satisfying. We haven't had this for a very long time. So. Yeah. Yeah, I wasn't too down on it. Plus, it's Vestergaard. Probably allowing too much space and everything like that. He hasn't been playing much lately. Plus, he's, you mentioned how slow he is. I don't have any complaints about it. Obviously, I'd rather Spurs didn't score, but just seeing Saints being at a level we haven't seen for a number of seasons, and we've all been crying out for so long. I don't have any real complaints.
Yeah. It, like as you said, it was kind of clear, like we were not going in the right direction towards the end of that game, and you could see the fouls we were giving away started to be in more and more dangerous areas. We were a little bit more sloppy in possession, and I think it's that if you're going to play in a Jose Mourinho team, those are the cues they start to look for. They grew. They had a couple of players that could just do enough in those moments to make us pay for it, and so be it. But as you said, I'd rather see the system work, know that we're going in the right direction, and be proud of the performance we put in, and still lose. I'll take that kind of all day long. And then I want to talk about cheaters winning, because there is, I'm
not sure what you're referring to here.
Well, I'm referring a little bit to John Jones last night in the UFC about coming back and getting a win after I forget how long was he suspended for performance enhancing drug use.
Oh god,
was it cocaine? It was cocaine, right?
Well, so it depends what time, because I believe he's actually been banned 3 times related to drugs. Some performance enhancing, others not. But yeah, I think after he beat Daniel Cormier, I think the second time, he tested positive for something. And since then, he's had what is known as picograms in his system, so still tiny, minuscule traces of his drugs in his system, but they're deemed so small that he couldn't have purposely taken them.
Oh, okay.
So there's a lot of, but that doesn't mean he didn't. This is after his ban.
This means he accidentally fell face first into a pile of cocaine 3 weeks before the fight.
Yes, perhaps. I don't want to speculate. But
sure. Well,
that could have happened. Yes.
Potentially.
Yeah.
Cannot confirm, but I for so long admired Son as a player, and he does things on the field that make me smile sometimes when I watch him. He's one of those players that I enjoy watching when Saints are not playing against him, but there's always kind of been this thing where, like, he's not that kind of player. Like, he's not a dirty player, but he's had a couple of red card challenges recently in past seasons, and it's like I'm starting to get further and further away from that. Like, I look at what he did in that situation, and I see almost no difference between that chance and what happened to Bertrand earlier in the match.
Yeah.
Other than Bertrand was closer to the end line, which means the ball is likely to run out of bounds, even if he's not touched. Like, he's not going to recover the ball, and I think that's maybe the only thing there. But I mean, if there was contact there, it surely was not enough to bring him down. And I know that it doesn't have to be that to make a penalty, but like, I just thought, like, that has to be looked at. Like, that should have been. And somebody said on Instagram, like, there was no VAR in the match, but there was.
There was, yeah.
It was looked at, and that's part of the thing with the FA Cup this year is if you're playing in a Premier League stadium, you have VAR. If you're not, then you don't. But it was looked at, and they chose not to overturn it. And it's one of those things where some people say, like, we felt like we were robbed and everything else, and some people, I think, told us just to grow up, because if we go to penalties, we're going to lose anyway, and we were already kind of falling apart, and extra time would have been great and all that stuff. And I think we at least deserve the shot. If I'm being honest.
That's not for anyone's place to say. It's a penalty shootout. Who's to say we'd lose that over Spurs? I mean, Spurs, rightly or wrongly, are referred to bottle jobs all the time. Who's to say that Saints could have won on the night for a penalty shootout? So I don't know. But yeah, I'm with you with Son. So I've been a massive fan of Son since he was at Leverkusen. So for a very long time, I was hoping naively that Saints could maybe jump in with a bid or something, maybe take a look at him because we were playing well at the time. Obviously, he ended up at Spurs, and he's a very good player. My feelings about Son soured after the just continual crying at the challenge he did on the Leicester player. I can't remember his name now. Is it Andre Gomez?
Yeah, I forget. But yeah, that was one of the ones I was referring to.
Yeah, just crying to the camera, and then he scored when he was, he had his red card rescinded. Scored the next week, went to camera, said sorry again. It's like, I want to swear again, but it's like, Jesus, come on, like enough of this. We get it. You're an amazing guy. Just I was just getting quite wound up with the whole pity party, and since then he's got a degree of petulance. He obviously got a red card a few weeks ago, and he's been accused of diving before midweek, and unfortunately I feel like we fell to that. He was already going down by the time Gunn was anywhere near him. I've seen Spurs fans have kindly screenshotted the exact moment Gunn's hand lightly brushes Son's midriff, which, as far as I'm aware, the slight touch of a hand to your midriff doesn't take your legs out from underneath you.
Right.
I could be wrong. I'm not a physicist. I'm not an expert on the human anatomy either. But everything had the hallmarks of a dive, and unfortunately, even with VAR, they gave it because VAR still doesn't eradicate terrible decisions, and still doesn't, in my opinion, eliminate big club bias. I think there's been plenty of times this season where we've clearly seen Spurs in particular have benefited quite a lot from VAR. I recall when Spurs should have had a penalty given against them against Watford. I believe it was Jan Vertonghen slid in and took out Deulofeu, and even with VAR, somehow Watford didn't get a penalty. And that's a team who at the time were totally out of form and trying to fight a relegation battle.
Yeah.
These are game-changing incidents which still aren't being properly handled. But I know you don't want to go off on the VAR tangent, so I'll keep it there. But yeah, it wasn't a penalty, and because it wasn't a penalty, obviously they scored it.
And Gunn does well to go the right way, just doesn't quite get enough on it to push it wide. So, I mean, it's Son's smile is nice as it is to see people happy. I don't like it when it's not deserved. Like, you shouldn't, like, life is not about smiling all the time. Like, sometimes you deserve to be sad. And he should have been sad because he should have been carded there for diving, and he wasn't. And I can say at the end of the game, like, the kids in my class were, saying sorry and apologizing because they saw the injustice. My 15-year-old students who I can say don't think about anything ever critically, were looking at that going, that's not a penalty. And I was like, hey, you get an A for today. Like, that's it. You win.
Well, let's get them in. Are they interested in becoming VAR officials sat in a little box?
I don't know. There would be some issues, I think, unless they could do it from here. I don't think some of them can make the trip.
Well,
definitely, you don't want people wearing blankets. You don't want people wearing blankets in the VAR in Stokely Park or wherever it is.
Yeah. Well, they'll definitely have to stay remote in the US then, because I don't think they'll be able to handle the cold here, especially the weather we're encountering at present.
Yeah. It sounds terrible. It's currently very sunny here. I'm gonna go back outside.
Awful. Yeah, terrible. Sorry.
Anyway, I won't talk about not wearing pants because that's a bad thing for you guys. I'm wearing shorts.
Thanks for clarifying.
Yeah. It's gotten me in trouble before, more than once, so we'll call it good here. But I mean, overall, not the best week for Saints. We were out of the FA Cup. Ward-Prowse is injured, but at the end of the day, we have a break now. Hopefully, guys can get healthy, and we come back, and you'd imagine that the guys would have gone in for recovery the next day after the match, and then basically probably have this weekend off and won't be back until you probably think Tuesday or Wednesday before things start ramping up for next weekend. And of course, that's the early kickoff. So I think it's noon or 12:30 on Saturday, and that means something like 4 a.m. for us. So that's great. Can't wait. I'm really looking forward to that. So yeah, I don't know. I think unless there's something else you want to cover, I think we can call it good.
No, that's about it. I was just going to say that Burnley Southampton is the kind of game you really want to get out of bed for.
That's right.
4 a.m.
That's right. I've never heard anything I've disagreed with more in my life. But maybe now we'll just, I mean, because they were the guys that just played over the top last time. They just said, "Oh, you'd like to press us? Sure, we'll just send it long."
Yeah, we owe Burnley the defeat because I did look into this for an article. I think it's previous two seasons we haven't beaten Burnley, something like that. They're one of our bogey teams.
Yeah,
anyway.
yeah, they are.
So yeah, we owe them. So hopefully, you'll be rewarded with your early wake up call. But let's just see. I'm not going to commit to any predictions on that, unfortunately.
No, I don't force people to do that because I'm not good at them, and I always say 2-1 Saints. So we'll just call it good. But Jake, I want to say thanks again. If people want to get in touch with you on Twitter, they can do that. You're at JJHughes_. You can also follow along for the in-match updates through Alan at St. Mary's Musings on Twitter. And of course, the website link is in the show notes if people are interested in going and having a visit. But Jake, it's always a pleasure to have you on, and I look forward to it. I looked down and saw your name coming up in a couple of weeks, and I said, this will be great. And we've spent entirely too much time on here, but I've enjoyed it, and I hope that the part that we recorded and the part that I leave in, people also enjoy. Yes, very much so. I've had a great time as ever. Great catching up with you over the podcast and before it, Matt. Thanks for the invite and having me on. Thanks for coming on, man. We'll do it again soon. Yeah, definitely. And that does it for this week's episode of the Southampton Delivery Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope that you've enjoyed it. Special thanks this week goes out to Jake Hughes. You can find him on Twitter at JJHughes_. You can also get in touch with St. Mary's Musings, of which Jake is the editor, at St. Mary's Musings on Twitter. You can also find the link to the blog or the website itself in the show notes below, so be sure to check that out and add it to your list of things that you use to stay up to date with what's going on with the Saints. If you are on social media and would like to get in touch, you can do that. We are on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at SFCDELL_IVERY on both Twitter and Instagram. And on Facebook, it's facebook.com/SFCDelivery. There is no underscore in the Facebook address, but if you want one place to find all of those links, plus links to subscribe wherever you listen, you can do that at southamptondelivery.com. While you're there, you can also sign up for the newsletter. That will be out on Friday. The show would be impossible without the partners and patrons of the show. So special thanks to Matt Beeling of the We Are Southampton page on Instagram for doing the logo for the show, and to the Southampton page on Twitter for keeping us up to date with everything going on around the club. All music for the show comes courtesy of the Free Music Archive at freemusicarchive.org. The intro song is Epic Song by Boxcat Games, and the end of show credits that you're listening to right now is Aim is True by Poddington Bear. As always, we'll be back next week with another episode. Hopefully, we have a win to talk about. So thanks for listening, and until then, remember that together, we march on. So usually I include some sort of clip here from an outtake to the episode, but there's none of that this week. Just want to tell you, thanks for listening. Also, if you're enjoying the show, please leave a review on iTunes or wherever you listen. It really does help. I mean that. Thanks a lot. We'll talk to you soon.